Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
Time is 6:07 here on O'Connor and Company. Thanks for tuning in on a busy news day. And we continue not just focusing on the terror attacks in New Orleans and Las Vegas yesterday, but also we're looking forward. There are a lot of domestic issues and issues right here in Washington, D.C. with the new administration coming in, the inauguration, the new Congress starting tomorrow. There's a lot on our plate. To help us through it, at 7:05, Cal Thomas will join us. And at 7:35, Matt Schlapp from American Conservative Union and CPAC. Then at 8:05, KT McFarland will join us, and at 8:35, Susan Ferriccio. And all morning long, I'm lucky enough to have Mercedes Schlapp here as my wingman, person, woman, chick. Hey, Mercedes.
Chick.
Good morning.
You're so funny, Larry.
You're filling in for Chris Plan on the right squad tonight.
I am. I'm
Newsmax.
back.
And
it's going to be exciting.
And
You're going to join me today,
I'm going
right?
to be on the panel. Yeah, if people want to see me and Mercedes do our thing on camera, that'll be what you want to look at. All right, so hours after the terror attack in New Orleans, and when we specifically knew without a shadow of a doubt that this was perpetrated by a radical Islamic terrorist inspired by ISIS for political and religious purposes, including IEDs that were planted in close proximity to the Catholic Church. And let's not forget, this is still Christmas week. It's also, I guess it was the last day of Hanukkah, if I'm doing my math right.
Yeah, and January 1st is the Solemnity of Mary for Catholics. So it is a holy day of obligation. Catholics, are supposed to go to church on January 1st, which I believe Raymond Arroyo, who lives in New Orleans, was saying that they did find several explosive devices near the cathedral, and they were able to detonate those explosive devices that were found near the cathedral that day as well. So this is really, it sounds like this terrorist, he was preparing for massive devastation.
Yes.
We've already seen, 16 people dead, 25 people injured. It's just so upsetting.
And he was murdering and creating mayhem and terror, because that's what terrorists do, in the name of jihad. He is a martyr to the cause of radical Islamic terrorists, not dissimilar to those who perpetrated the October 7th, 2023 attacks in Israel. And that's why it was maddening, it was galling, it was disgusting, it was despicable, it was anti-American, it was anti-humanity to see thousands march in Times Square yesterday waving Palestinian flags and chanting terrorist chants like "resistance is glorious, we will be victorious. We will honor our martyrs." Understand something. The martyrs are the terrorists. The martyrs are the people who die while trying to murder as many Americans and Christians and Jews and innocent people for the cause. We will honor all our martyrs, they were chanting. Gaza, you make us proud. Zionism is cancer. End all U.S. aid to Israel. There is only one solution: intifada revolution. Intifada. This is what was happening in New York City hours after this attack happened and hours after we knew what it was. And they were proud. They were celebrating it, Mercedes.
Intifada, which is Arabic for uprising, and they're the ones that these protesters are the ones who, do believe that what happened in Israel October 7th was justified. The killing of over 1,000 Israelis. They basically are their whole thing is going against Zionism. This was not only happening in New York. There was also another protest happening in Toronto in favor of the Intifada, and they're going to Intifada, and they're going to continue. You're going to continue to see this, and this hatred towards Western civilization, this hatred towards Israel and the United States was not only visible so much during the 2024 on our college campuses, but also in major cities. And it really, when you start seeing, for example, this one killer in New Orleans, this attacker, he had the ISIS flag. So there is this new rise on supporting ISIS, and it's something that's very disturbing. It's something that when President Trump was in office, they had abolished ISIS. That was part of their fight against the terrorists, and now all of a sudden we're seeing the rise of ISIS back in the U.S.
Yeah,
and it's just it's so disturbing. And then of course you have Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas saying, this, we're working closely with our law enforcement partners, blah, blah. It's like, dude,
so
how did you miss this? Like, how are we not on top of this? How are we not being proactive to avoid these types of attacks where innocent lives are being lost in American cities?
Yeah, this whole, one of the chants that we've heard on college campuses from these pro-Hamas jihadists, pro-Iranian jihadists, Iranian-funded jihadists, has been globalize the intifada. In other words, wreak terror all across the planet, not just in Israel, not just in Jerusalem. And this is what globalizing the intifada looks like. We just saw it on Bourbon Street at 3 a.m. on New Year's Day. That's what they're doing. That's what they're chanting. That's what they're in support of. And listen, we won the election. I'm thrilled that we won the election, but it takes me right back to where I was with so many people who...
Well, we're behind. We're behind. We are behind in terms of our national security. We are behind in the fact that Biden allowed for these open borders. We have no idea who's in our country.
What has occurred
we
in the
are
last 4 years?
behind
No, I
in
know
terms of protecting Americans because of Biden's irresponsibility.
You're right.
And the fact is he never fired Mayorkas. They spent more time on the Catholics. They spent more time on trying to kill off Donald Trump and destroy him and put him in jail than they did on going after real terrorists and real enemies of the state.
I agree. The upside that I'm trying to convey.
Oh, sorry, I was a little intense
is that
there.
we fired them by winning the election. Otherwise, we would have 4 more years of this clown car, this dangerous, deadly clown car. But regardless of the fact that Trump and Vance beat Harris and Waltz, understand something. The upgrade that's about to happen from National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan to Tim Walz, who was a Green Beret and served in both Afghanistan and Iraq. We've got from Christopher Wray at the FBI, we get Kash Patel. From Antony Blinken at the State Department, we get Marco Rubio, who, listen, he was not my first choice for Secretary of State, but one of his crowning achievements in the last year was when Code Pink protesters stopped him in the hallway outside his office at the Senate and asked him about October 7th, and he unequivocally said, no, that Israel has every right to exist, and Israel has every right to defend herself, and Israel has every right to proactively kill every Hamas terrorist and take care of Gaza until there's not one Hamas person left standing. He has been and will continue to be unequivocal on these things, which is a huge upgrade at every level of the going from Lloyd Austin to Pete Hegseth. Going from, I don't even know who our DNI is right now, which tells you something, but we'll have Tulsi Gabbard. Every single step of the way, the team that he will put in place, Donald Trump will put in place, is such an upgrade. You're right, we're behind, but we have a team assembled now, should they be confirmed immediately by the Senate, to actually start putting us back on the right path. And I just want people to have some level of hope that the good guys are on their way in. That's for sure. It's 6:15.
Senator Rubio, will you call for ceasefire?
No, I will not.
Gaza?
On the contrary.
Senator Rubio,
are you filming it?
Wait,
I want you guys to get this. I want them to destroy every element of Hamas they can get their hands on. These people are vicious animals who did horrifying crimes. And I hope you guys post that.
And what about the civilians that are being killed every day?
Hamas should stop hiding behind civilians, putting civilians in the way. Hamas knew that this was going to lead to this. So Hamas should stop building their military installations underneath hospitals.
So you don't care that 15,000 have died? You don't care about the babies that are being killed every day?
I think it's horrifying. I think it's terrible, and I think Hamas is 100% to blame. That's what I think. Make sure you post that, please.
Like I said, Senator Rubio's shining moment, frankly. Every time I had some qualms about him being Secretary of State, which, again, I made no bones about it. He was not my first choice. I think back to that moment in June, and I feel like, again, Nothing but an upgrade from Antony. Can you imagine Antony Blinken ever saying anything even close to that about Hamas and Gaza and Israel? Not even close. We have been
no.
We are unequivocal now in terms of where we're headed and what the direction
where we
will
stand.
be. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that there's a real shift in our foreign policy. I think there's a real shift in our national security. I think, I just noticed this right now. Robbie Starbuck posting that 6 months ago, New Orleans FBI office, they were doing DEI hiring events, increased diversity. That's what they were focusing on. And let me tell you, day one, all those DEI initiatives, they have to be dismantled. We have to focus on talent. We have to focus on people who could really do the job. And the mere fact is I think you're going to see a very strong national security team, strong FBI saying, listen, we need the experts here because we're at a point right now that we are at risk.
Yeah.
And the American people, we have to stay vigilant at this point because, look, we're going to have a huge inauguration. We better, DC and FBI, and they all better be on the same page on making sure that people are safe, because you're going to see thousands of people coming into the city.
That's right.
And it could be a disaster if it's not handled right.
Let me tell you, that 100% flashed through my mind when I saw this unfold yesterday, because you remember 8 years ago, Trump's inauguration was a nightmare, and Antifa was everywhere. We had a limousine that was set ablaze. We had people terrorized. We had windows of businesses shattered. This absolutely needs to be priority number one for Muriel Bowser, for the District of Columbia, and yes, for federal law enforcement agencies, beyond a shadow of a doubt. And by the way, if we could, and listen, Kash Patel is a great guy, and I've had the opportunity to get to know him a little bit, and he is going to be a fantastic director of the FBI. So this is out of all humility that I would even dare to make a suggestion to him, but I just want to throw it out there. Could we go back to some sort of uniform code of appearance and grooming for our FBI agents? There used to be a joke where FBI they all had the same haircut. They all wore the same suit. They all wore the same tie. That's a good thing. Could we? In fact, listen, I don't want to overstep my bounds, but how about this? Just a suggestion: no more nose rings. Okay, if you're an FBI agent, take out the nose ring, whether you're on camera or not.
Why don't instead of pick, apparently that woman is in charge of the FBI New Orleans office. Just find someone who could be a good communicator. Some people could be a good manager, some people, but communications, it's an art, as you and I know. Mm-hmm. And you have someone up there that's going to exude confidence and exude that we're in charge and we got this under control. It was literally a clown show yesterday, listening to these individuals speak. Yeah. It was very disturbing. It felt like they didn't have anything under control. And the mere fact is that they were saying two very different messages. The mayor was saying something different than the FBI special agent. Yeah. Very, very disturbing. Why? If they're focusing on DEI and hiring diversity instead of focusing on what can we do to secure our city, which apparently they failed at, we've got a problem. Yep. We've got a huge problem.
Well, we do. And certainly that's the impression that's left. But I just want to be, as fair-minded as possible. Christopher Wray, the director of the FBI, he's a straight white dude, and he comes across pretty incompetent, too. So I don't know if DEI was utilized there or not. But either way, how about we just stress competence no matter what? Also, by the way, just in the spirit of being bipartisan and ecumenical, the governor of Louisiana, Jeff Landry, he is a Republican. And I don't know if he did this or if his social media team did this or if
saw that.
Or if this was just a scheduled post. But just hours after the terror attack, on the governor's social media platform, he posted a picture of himself and a group of people at the Bonton Prime Rib New Orleans restaurant, and he says, "Ate dinner tonight in New Orleans, proud to be a part of this incredibly resilient city. See everyone at the game tomorrow."
Yeah, that's look, I love Jeff Landry. He's a great guy, but I was like, this is such an amateur's mistake. Literally, this is when I feel like I don't know. They need a crisis communicator to come in and just fix keep things in order because it was a disaster.
That
complete
is
disaster.
Absolute disaster. And I want to think that it would, but even if
and he's a great guy, but it's like, come
yeah.
on, this is a moment of tragedy for these families and these victims. Like, it's awful.
Was it?
It's just awful.
Even if it was a scheduled post, then you take it down.
You take it down, and
you explain.
That's the problem.
You said that's the thing. We live in a world of transparency. Everybody makes mistakes, so be fully transparent. You take that post down, then you write a new post that said we inappropriately put out a scheduled post, not knowing. It was scheduled before the terror attacks.
Just don't take that. I mean, why are you going out to dinner the night of or whatever? It was bad. It was like the whole thing was bad.
It was the night before.
But
going out to dinner
on
New Year's Eve is no big deal.
Eve,
it was
and
hours
then the
before.
attack happens.
Right.
And
then you post a picture of it after the attack. It's like
see you at the game when the game is postponed.
Yeah.
But there is a beautiful post of a lot of the Notre Dame cat.
Hold your thought about. I want to hear the beauty. We need beauty, but we also need to take a quick.
Don't point your finger at me. You're pointing your finger.
You know
at me.
what? And I intend to use it, young
pointing.
lady.
Stop.
It's 6:24. So much incompetence, misinformation, and frustration yesterday after these terror attacks. What we saw in New York with the Intifada march, but Mercedes Schlapp, you promised us some hope. You promised us an uplifting story coming out of this.
Yeah,
please.
Well, as we know, the Sugar Bowl was supposed to happen last night between University of Georgia and the Fighting Irish, University of Notre Dame, and one of the things they did was they held they postponed the game. They did hold a mass where there was hundreds of Notre Dame fans who came together and prayed for the victims. And it's one of those moments where they sang the Notre Dame song, which is a very famous song that they always do after the football games.
The alma mater,
and they are all kind of they kind of put their arms over, or, unite together, and it's just a beautiful thing. I mean, it shows that in those moments of darkness that it is truly through faith that you can overcome the darkness and come together during these difficult times.
You're right. That's all we can do, and we will continue to do it. All right, coming up next, you may think that Benny Thompson, Liz Cheney, the people of the J6 committee should be under criminal investigation for destruction of evidence and witness tampering. But no, Joe Biden has a different idea. He's giving them an award today. We'll tell you about it next.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station.
Making sense of the news.
News Talk 105.9.
News now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
6:37 now. It's O'Connor and Company. On an incredibly busy second day of January, we're going to keep you up to speed on all the latest developments coming out of New Orleans and Las Vegas, as well as right here in Washington, D.C., as it's going to be a pretty busy political news cycle starting tomorrow with the vote in the House of Representatives of their Speaker of the House. Coming up at 7:05, we'll talk to Cal Thomas about that. 7:35, Matt Schlapp as well. Then at 8:05, KT McFarland certainly will have her perspective on these terrorist attacks. And then at 8:35, Susan Ferriccio of the Washington Times. I'm Larry O'Connor, joined all morning long by Mercedes Schlapp. Mercedes, Happy New Year.
Good morning. Happy New Year.
Well, it'll be a very happy New Year for Liz Cheney and Benny Thompson and members of the January 6th Investigative Committee. As I mentioned a moment ago, many people believe that Mr. Thompson, Ms. Cheney, Mr. Kinzinger, and all the other members of that august forum should be keeping all of their emails, all of their documentations, because it's going to be subpoenaed come 18 days from now. Because we know for a fact that Liz Cheney was engaged in witness tampering with Cassidy Hutchinson. We've seen the text messages supporting that allegation. We also have heard reports from Representative Loudermilk, a Republican of Georgia, who's been investigating the January 6th investigative process, the committee's process, I should say, that much of the evidence that was gathered by that committee was destroyed before the new Republican majority came in. So much about how they conducted the January. Police Chief Sund, Steve Sund, the chief of police for the Capitol Police in charge of the police the day of January 6th, had to beg to testify, and his testimony was never included in any of the primetime presentations or any of the live presentations. He's the chief. This committee was not interested in getting to the truth and finding out what happened. We never heard about the decision-making process made by Nancy Pelosi and Muriel Bowser about not calling in any support from the National Guard until it was too late. We never heard any testimony about any of that. The entire thing was a kangaroo committee. Kevin McCarthy, the Republican minority leader at the time, presented members of the House that he wanted on the committee, and Nancy Pelosi, for the first time in American history, rejected the minority leader's recommendations for the committee and placed her own Republicans, Kinzinger and Cheney. And now today, after everything that I just laid out about how fraudulent and partisan this kangaroo committee was for January 6th, today, President Joe Biden at the White House will be pinning medals on their shirts, every single one of them.
I don't know if they're pinning medals. Normally they do the...
Maybe it's on a ribbon over their neck.
It's on a ribbon.
All right,
it's the
fine.
second highest civilian medal.
Yes.
The Presidential Citizens Medal, which Biden will be awarding to 20 people in a ceremony today.
This is enraging.
Including Americans who fought for marriage equality, of course, a pioneer in treating wounded soldiers, and two of the president's longtime friends, former Senators Ted Kaufman and Chris Dodd. And adding to that list, that is right, people, Liz Cheney and Benny Thompson are getting the second highest civilian medal today by President Joe Biden for their work on the J6 committee. I mean, how disgusting is this?
Chris Dodd, I love it. Chris Dodd, who, if you ask anybody, what is Chris Dodd known for when he was a senator in the United States? And the only thing you can come up with is that he was a known carouser around town with Ted Kennedy, the infamous waitress sandwich that Dodd and Kennedy conducted with a helpless victim waitress at a restaurant in town. In fact, I think that there was another waitress at the same establishment that claimed Joe Biden had gotten very handsy with her and assaulted her in the early 90s. So, yeah, of course, Chris Dodd should get a medal because why not? He's a pal. And Ted Kaufman of Delaware, well, he's from Delaware, so I guess that's why he's worthy of a medal.
Well, if you're friends with the president, you get a medal. It's like a participation trophy.
Well, does that mean you're going to get a medal? Is Trump going to give you a medal?
If you're a Republican, he should. No, I'm kidding. I don't need a medal. But Liz Cheney, come on. She ends up voting for Kamala Harris. She completely destroys her political credibility. You know, you have Congresswoman Harriet Hageman, who's one of my favorite congresswomen, who beats Liz Cheney in that seat in Wyoming. I mean, completely I remember Liz Cheney when I would work at the White House and she would come over. She was Republican conference chair. We would talk through Republican messaging. She was so competent. Like, it was literally like, what happened, Liz? Like, you completely lost your way. You went psycho. You went like Trump derangement syndrome. And now this is what you're going to end up, a Joe Biden civilian medal. Give me a break.
Yeah.
Give me a break.
I wonder how Daddy feels.
All to destroy Donald Trump. That is what
right.
you're going to be known for, trying to destroy Donald Trump and placate the Democrats' obsession with Donald Trump.
This is such a divisive move, too, and he knows it. He knows
so
that
divisive.
by doing this today, he angers Trump voters. Everybody, he's a uniter. He's a unifier. It's going to be such a great transition. This is what he's doing out the door. This is outrageous. It's disgusting. But let me just, again, I always try to put a bright side on stories like this. Liz Cheney's going to be standing up there getting her medal from Joe Biden at the same time people who fought for so-called marriage equality are going to get the same medal. This is hilarious. You remember when Liz Cheney was running for Congress and she wanted that Republican nomination in Wyoming, she had to throw her own sister under the bus. Her sister is a lesbian.
I remember that.
Her sister is a lesbian.
Mary Cheney.
Her sister, Mary Cheney, a very nice woman, by the way. I've met her. She's very smart, very competent. I like her a lot better than Liz. But she was an advocate for same-sex marriage. That was an issue in the primary, and Liz Cheney had to throw her own sister under the bus over the issue of gay marriage so she could secure that nomination. And now here she's going to be standing up there getting the medal next to people who fought for so-called marriage equality. There's some poetic justice to that. It's 6:43.
Hey, it's Chris Plant. Find out what the media don't want you to know. Coming up this morning at 9, right here on WMAL.
So there's a picture circulating around the internet right now, Mercedes Schlapp, and it's just sad and pathetic. Apparently, this may have been New Year's Eve, I think, or maybe New Year's Day. 5 reigning late-night comedy talk show hosts were at dinner all together. I guess they were all talking to each other about how they're losing dreadfully to Greg Gutfeld every night. But it's John Oliver from HBO with an odious weekly show that's just terrible in propaganda.
Who is John Oliver? I never have even heard of him.
He's the Brit. He's now an American citizen. He started on The Daily Show with Jon Stewart, and he does a weekly show that's just left-wing propaganda. It's horrible. So, of course, he wins Emmys because Hollywood loves him. Then you have Seth Meyers, who does the late night on NBC. You got Stephen Colbert, who does The Late Show on CBS. You got Jimmy Kimmel, who does The Jimmy Kimmel Show on ABC. And then you had Jimmy Fallon, who does The Tonight Show on NBC. All 5 of them posing together, arm in arm, at a restaurant, I'm guessing in New York City. And it's the captions that are being circulated with this picture, you can imagine, are pretty funny, actually.
Well, yours was funny. Yours
I thought
said
it was.
5 white guys sitting around helping each other craft jokes about the GOP's lack of diversity.
Exactly.
I mean, they are pathetic. And Greg Gutfeld had a good one too, where he kind of said he was beating out all the ratings. So for these 6 guys,
right? It was the consolation prize dinner where these 5 people who make millions of dollars and have job security, because I guess the job really isn't to get great ratings or to entertain. The job is to be left-wing propaganda. All 5 of them tell the same jokes about the same things at the same people's expense. And it's really, to see them all 5 together in the same room, posing for a picture, having dinner, sort of tells you something. You know, they're all in the same club. They all do the same thing. And they're all in on it together, it appears. It's sort of pathetic.
Well, I always feel, and this is the problem, and, you see this with MSNBC and these very elitist types of media folks that are so focused on telling you how you should vote, how you should think, where they don't believe in this importance of debate, but it's all about, in this case, the Trump derangement syndrome, which is very real. And it's not funny.
No.
And it doesn't work anymore.
And it's
you start to realize that there's millions of Americans out there, obviously, who sent a very direct message to the media elites that they are done with their BS and they are done with their leftist propaganda, and the American people are not going to stand for it anymore. And they want to live in a free and safe society where they can raise their families, go to church, have schools that focus on teaching kids to be smart and smart innovators and smart thinkers and critical thinkers, and not trying to change their sexuality. I mean, this is where we are right now. It's so basic. We're going back to the basics, and this is why you see these loser comedians who aren't funny anymore.
Our friend,
I've got the sign.
Our friend, I gave you the sign. It's time to wrap it up. Our friend Brent Bozell at Media Research Center highlighted, they just did a report on the jokes made on these shows from September 3rd through October 25th, right up until the election. A whopping 98% of the jokes made Donald Trump the punchline, made Donald Trump the butt of the joke. That's 1,428 jokes out of 1,463. I'm sorry, if you're a professional comedian and you can't find Tim Walz, Kamala Harris, and Joe Biden funny, if you can't come up with some joke about those 3 and you have to focus everything on Trump, you don't deserve to have a TV show or to get paid to tell jokes at all. 98%. That's rough. And that's why they're losing. And that's why